Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a review of an American exploitation cannibal horror film from 1973. And the film I'm talking about is Malatesta's Carnival of Blood. This is one of those 70s horror films. Um, and when I say one of those 70s horror films, some of you might know what I'm talking about, some of you might not. But in the 70s, there was an interesting influx of low budget horror films or big budget horror films, no, really just horror films in general, that had a very surreal tone and atmosphere to them. Whether it be strange music, set pieces, characters, or plot elements, they were pretty um, I wouldn't say really common, but I would say they were kind of common. I think a few good examples of these very surreal horror films from the 70s would be stuff like Pink Flamingos, uh, Female Trouble, Phantom of the Paradise, uh, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it even went on into the 80s with not just horror, well, of course, the granddaddy of all weird horror films, Eraserhead. But it went on into the 80s with stuff like Things from 1989 and even stuff like Pink Floyd's The Wall. It just got very, very strange and surreal and very kind of dark. Although films like Phantom of the Paradise and Rocky Horror Picture Show I wouldn't say are necessarily dark in their tone, they still have that kind of weird atmosphere and feel to them. It's kind of hard to explain, but this might be one of the earliest ones I've ever seen that is so strange, but it's not like Eraserhead strange. It's not Pink Flamingo strange. It is a whole nother level. Let me try to explain. Malatesta's Carnival of Blood is a film that was, for a while, not released on any home media. It got a small DVD release, and then Arrow Video came to the rescue and released it on a Blu-ray set called The American Horror Project with The Witch Who Came from the Sea and The Premonition. Now, this film was kind of lost, forgotten. I'm sure it had a VHS release, and it did have a small DVD release, as I said, but it was pretty much a lost, forgotten little film, and obviously a very, very low budget film once you actually see it. But it is a film about a family who goes to work at this carnival, this carnival slash amusement park that is in this small town, and there are parts of this carnival that look like it's part of an up and running actual like carnival that was like uh, that was a real carnival that they just filmed the scenes in, and other parts look like they were filmed in just a very old, kind of broken down, dilapidated carnival. This family isn't there to work though. They're there to look for their missing son, who went missing around that area, and their son ends up going missing, and basically this leads them down the rabbit hole and into the underground mines below the carnival, which are inhabited by a group of cave dwelling ghouls, I would say. They're kind of like ghouls. They're ghoulish. They're kind of ghoul cannibals, zombies. Um, that live down there, and they basically hunt. They go out at night dressed up as carnival workers to clean up the place at night, pick up any trash, whatever, and kill anybody who may trespass or whoever may be around. The film, I will admit, starts off a little bit slow at first, but as soon as the movie starts, the surreal atmosphere and the surreal tone is there, with the main girl, the main daughter of the family, getting, I think her name is Vera. She's getting her fortune told, and as she's getting her fortune told, the table that she's sitting at and the room itself just seems to be spinning around and round and round and round, and it's very strange and interesting. There are very strange kind of ways that scenes are shot in this movie. And if I were to give this film one thing that it does 100% correctly, it is the tone, atmosphere, and set design. The set design, while cheap, is the kind of cheapness seems almost intentional to make it even more surreal. For example, I'll give you a very good example of a very surreal scene and a very surreal set piece that I thought was really cool, although it was cheap. It was literally a BW bug upside down, hanging from ropes, and then there had been padding put around the inside of it and some of the outside of it to make it look like it was made out of flesh, and it had a mouth on it, where the teeth of the mouth were paper disposable cups. And this girl is just laying in this BW made of flesh, swinging back and forth. It's very, very, very just fucking off the wall and crazy, and I kind of love it. But basically, you follow the Norris family, and then you have the man who basically is the financial advisor for the owner of the carnival, who is Mr. Blood. Mr. Blood himself even dresses up like a vampire later in the movie and drinks somebody's blood. But Malatesta is the person who owns the carnival, and he has kind of an almost Montag the Magnificent or Edgar Allan Poe kind of look to him. He's creepy in a kind of conventional, Jack the Ripper, Victorian horror kind of way, I would say. But basically, it is Malatesta's. I don't think it's Malatesta's family that is the cave dwellers, but one of the carnival workers. It's his family who lives in the caves, and basically they just kind of kill people at this carnival in various ways and feed them to these cave dwellers. So, now that I've kind of gotten the plot out of the way, and this took me 8 minutes, let me get into actually discussing what the film does, how the film is acted, written, put together. The acting in the film is okay. I mean, I've definitely seen way worse acting. I have seen better acting in low-budget horror, but as this one stands, it's okay. The writing here, again, it's alright. It's nothing great. You know, if you expect something Kubrickian out of a film called Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, then I think you might be sorely, sorely mistaken. And the characters are really... I think this is one of those films that the characters are interesting, and the main girl is likable, and the main guy at the carnival, whose name I cannot remember for the life of me, he's kind of likable as a character. He's worked at the carnival for a little bit, but he doesn't know about, the cave dwellers or anything, and he's just a pretty boy who works there. And he's a pretty interesting kind of character. He gives off that kind of, cool, I would say almost Happy Days Fonzie kind of vibe. But then again, I could be completely forgetting everything. There's Johnny, who is Vera's boyfriend, who shows up later in the movie towards the end. He is kind of likable in his persistence to find out what's going on at this carnival. And same goes for Vera and her family. They're very persistent, and they kind of hide the fact that they're looking for their son. And honestly, when I read the plot for this movie, I was like, okay, so they're just going to show up at this carnival. But no, they were already there, and it's interesting because you read that, and then you find out, and I'm just sitting here so they're not looking for their son. And then literally, 15, 20 minutes in, they're like, okay, we gotta start looking for him. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this is the family. But that being said, those few things out of the way, the lighting, camera work, set design, cinematography, all that I would say is pretty solid. I mean, I think they do a good job with using their limited budget, at least camera and like lighting wise, to make something that's interesting looking. It definitely has an interesting look and feel and vibe to it, and I don't think I would say 100% that maybe the director of this movie did drugs in the 60s, but after watching this movie, I kind of get that feeling of, yeah, he probably, did a few tabs of acid or something. I don't know what acid comes in. I don't, I don't fucking know, but, um, it has that kind of, like, surreal, hippie, kind of LSD kind of vibe going on. It's very hard to explain. You got to watch the movie yourself to kind of understand what I'm trying to get across in words. But that's all good. The effects here are okay. There's a few scenes of dismemberment that are pretty okay looking. They kind of reminded me of Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse. I would also like to say that Eaten Alive by Tobe Hooper I think it's another good example of like surreal 70s horror, or maybe that was early 80s when he did Eaten Alive. I think it was like the late 70s when he did Eaten Alive, but that film has a very surreal kind of tone to it. But anyway, there's a few scenes of dismemberment. There's quite a few scenes of blood and gore, and it's nothing like big budget, but it's good for what it is. I mean, if you enjoy, like, I would say Herschel Gordon Lewis films, if you enjoy Blood Feast or The Wizard of Gore, I would say that this stuff is kind of on that level. Soundtrack for this movie, really, really creepy, really good soundtrack. It is. Again, it's another one of those things that's hard to explain. You just kind of have to hear it yourself in context with some scenes of the movie to really get the full effect of how interesting the soundtrack is. I wouldn't say it's a great soundtrack. I would say it's good. I would definitely say it's interesting at times, but I wouldn't say it's like under the skin levels of good and unsettling, or the witch levels of unsettling. But it's creepy for what it is. Overall, I can't really say I could 100% recommend this movie to anybody, mainly because it's so strange. Like, it's like, even as somebody who has seen Eraserhead and can recommend that to almost everybody, I honestly couldn't find. I can't really think of anybody who could really recommend this to. I would say if you have some free time and you enjoy weird 70s kind of horror, or you enjoy strange kind of exploitation films, this film is definitely one I would say to look out for. It's interesting enough, and I mean, honestly, I fell asleep when I watched it, and I had to rewind it, and I was kind of mad at myself because the things I fell asleep through were some of the most entertaining parts of the movie. But it's a pretty creepy, kind of well put together. Not like put together like fantastic, but it's decently put together. And I would say that if you're into low budget horror, it's probably worth your time. And on the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu, and 10 being something like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, Malatesta's Carnival of Blood probably sits at a solid like 4. It's not ultra gory, but I'm sure for the time no, I'm actually thinking back. I mean, let's see, this was 73, and Herschel Gordon Lewis had already put out like the first 3. Pretty sure he had put out already like the first 3, his first 3 splatter films, and I would say it's probably about as violent as Blood Feast is. But I'm sure for the time it was still a pretty decently shocking movie. But overall, like I said, it's kind of hard for me to recommend this to anybody, but if you enjoy weird 70s exploitation, I would say, again, stuff like maybe not as trashy as some of these, but surreal as some of these. Stuff like Female Trouble, Female Trouble, Pink Flamingos, fucking Eaten Alive, Things, Blood Feast, The Wizard of Gore, the Gore Girls, If you enjoy stuff like that, I think you might find some enjoyment in this film. But overall, I would probably have to give this one a solid 4. Solid 4.5, solid 4 out of 5, maybe a 3.5 out of 5. It's another one of those ones where I'm like, I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, I don't want to give it too high a rating. I don't want to give it too low a rating, so I'm going to sit it at like a 3.5, maybe a 3, anywhere from a 3 to a 4 for me personally. But anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.